This is part 2 of the, sorry, this is the second video for Spring Final Exam Review Part 1. And this goes into division. So let's start with number 13. Number 13, notice we have two polynomials, we're dividing them. The first guy always goes inside of our bracket guy. Now notice it jumps from x to the fourth to x squared. What we need is every exponent represented. So we're missing x to the third. Here's how we add that in. We add plus 0x to the third. And then we have x squared, we have x, and we have something by itself. On the outside, that same rule would apply, but in this case, we have all of our exponents. Now when we divide, it is a three-step process. So step one, we're doing division. We're going to divide. There's step one, divide. When we divide, we only look at the first terms. Only the first terms. So we're going to do 4x to the fourth divided by x squared. We know when we divide, we subtract the exponent, so we're left with 4x squared. And that's the division part. Then we are going to do the second part, which is multiply. We're going to take this 4x squared and multiply it to all three of these. So what that's going to give us is 4x to the fourth plus 8x to the third minus 16x squared. Now what you'll notice is that these first terms right here are identical. That should happen every time. If those don't line up, something went wrong earlier in the process. And then our third step of the cycle is to subtract. 4x to the fourth minus 4x to the fourth is 0, so it cancels out. 0x to the third minus 8x to the third is negative 8x to the third. And be careful here with the minus negative. That's always something you need to look out for. That minus negative becomes plus. So negative 2x squared minus negative 16x squared is plus 14x squared. That minus negative makes it positive. And the last step of our cycle is to drop down the last term, or the next term rather. And we start the whole thing over again, dividing first terms. So negative 8x to the third divided by x squared leaves me with negative 8x. That's divide. Now we multiply. Multiply that negative 8x to everything over here. We get negative 8x squared to the third, sorry. Negative 8x times 2x is negative 16x squared. Negative 8x times negative 4 is positive 32x. That's divide and multiply. Now we subtract. Negative 8x minus negative 8x to the third minus negative 8x to the third. Again, that minus negative means plus. That cancels out. Again, that should always happen. 14x squared minus negative 16x squared. There's that minus negative again, which tells us to add. So we get 30x squared. Negative 3x minus 32x is negative 35x. And then we drop down our next term. Start the whole process over again. First terms, 30x squared divided by x squared is positive 30. If you need to see that done out, that's 30x squared divided by x squared. The x squared cancels each other out. Now we multiply, we get 30x squared plus 60x minus 120. That's divide and multiply. And we subtract. 30x squared minus 30x squared cancels out. Negative 35x minus 60x is negative 95x. 1 minus negative 120, again, minus negative is plus 121. Notice there's nothing here left to drop. That's how you know we're done with that rotation. Sorry. Now what's left here is the remainder. When there's nothing left to drop, it leaves us with the remainder. Here's how we express the remainder. We do plus and then fraction. On top of the fraction is that remainder. So negative 95x plus 121. On bottom of the fraction is that guy. That's what will be on bottom. So x squared plus 2x minus 4. And this is ultimately our final answer. So take a minute to look at this. Pause this video if you need to. I need to erase this for the sake of having more room to work. However, if you need to see this more, this is a great time to hit pause, go over this problem, make sure you understand how every single thing was done, because you will have to do this on the final. Moving down to letter C. And there's a reason why I'm skipping B, but we'll get to that in a second. C is also long division. So again, inside our bracket is our first polynomial. Notice again, it jumps from x squared to no x's at all. We need just that solo x. So plus 0x minus 33. Then out here I have 7x plus 7. There's our three-step process: divide, multiply, subtract. We divide the first terms. 42x squared divided by 7x gives us 6x. So that's divide. Then we multiply that 6x times 7x plus 7. So we'll distribute it. We'll get 42x squared plus 42x. And then finally we subtract. 42x squared minus 42x squared, again, we know that that should always cancel out. 0x minus 42x is negative 42x. Drop down to negative 33. Start over. Negative 42x divided by 7x. We get negative 6. Then we distribute that negative 6 over here. We get negative 42x minus 42. We subtract. Again, minus negative cancels out. Negative 33 minus negative 42. Minus negative becomes plus. Ends up being 9. Nothing left to drop over here. So that means we're left with our remainder down here. That 9 is our remainder. So again, our remainder, we handle it plus 9 over 7x plus 7. Make sure you understand this. Again, this is a good time to hit pause and rework this problem if you need to. Now let's head back up to B. B is a little bit different. Notice over here we have x minus 2. That x is all alone. It's not squared. There's no 2x like C has 7x. X is just all by itself. When x is all by itself in that second polynomial, again, that's the second one, we can use what's called synthetic division. Here's how we do that. Synthetic division is going to start with a bracket out here, and inside that bracket is always going to be this number and change its sign. So that negative 2 becomes positive 2. Then the rest of the setup is what numbers we're going to put out here. To do that, we're going to take the coefficients of this polynomial. We're going to take its coefficients. So the first coefficient is at 3 in front of x to the third. Again, just like problem A and C, it skips an exponent. It jumps from third power to first power. There is no squared. Same idea. If there is no squared, or if we're missing an exponent, we plug 0 in its place. Then I have 4x and negative 1. Under this first number, in this case it's 3, we'll always put a 0. What we're going to do is we're going to add these two rows. 3 plus 0, obviously 3. Now I got to figure out what goes in this area under that 0. To figure that out, we're going to multiply this 2 times what we have here. So in this case, 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 0 plus 6 is 6. Again, to figure out what to put under that 4, we are going to multiply that 2 times 6. When we multiply it, we get 12. Again, we add, so that's 16. 2 times 16 is 32. Negative 1 plus 32 is 31. And we're always going to put a bracket around the last one. Why do we put a bracket around the last one? Because that is ultimately our remainder. So we know how to write remainders by now. 31 over x minus 2. It's always fraction. That guy's at the bottom. Here's how we do the rest of it. This first guy is always all by himself. The second guy always gets an x, and then if it's a positive number, obviously separated with a plus sign. This third guy will always get x squared. And that's how I figured out. If there was another one, he would get x to the fourth. If we had another one, he would get x to the fifth. But that's it. This is your final answer. And that's how you do synthetic division. Once again, pause the video if you need to. Otherwise, we're moving on to problem D. Problem D, again, the variable over here, it's not squared, it's not times anything, so we can use synthetic division. That is, we could use long division here. Long division works in every single problem. Synthetic division only works when that variable is by itself. So again, in the bracket, we put this guy and change his sign, so that positive 8 becomes negative 8. Out front, we put the coefficients of the first guy, so that's 1, 14, and 38. I don't have to put any zeros because it goes squared, one variable, then no variables. As always, under the first guy is 0, and we're adding the rows. 1 plus 0 is 1. To get the number under the 14, to get this number right here, we're going to multiply negative 8 times 1, which is negative 8. 14 plus negative 8 is 6. 6 times negative 8 is negative 48. 38 plus negative 48 is negative 10. And again, always a bracket around the last one. So the remainder is negative 10 over r plus 8. As always, the guy next to the remainder is by himself. The next guy always has an x. If we had someone else over here, it would be x squared. Obviously, we don't. And as always, when you have, when you have one x, we could leave it as x. So that is it for part 1 of the review. If you need more help, please ask questions during class or during tutorials. Feel free to watch this video as many times as you need in order to firm up your knowledge. If you, again, ask questions, every other final exam review part will have its own video up on Canvas very shortly, and I will see you in class.